Welcome, folks. I'm Sam Faddis, and this is Ground Truth, where we try to get past the hype and the spin and the nonsense that passes for news these days and talk about reality for a little while. And today we're talking about Russia, Ukraine, and the possibility that we're going to see a major conventional war out on the Eurasian steppe sometime very soon. If you follow the news at all, I am sure you are aware that the Russians have been beating up on the Ukrainians for a number of years now. The Ukrainians had the audacity to begin to drift toward the West, to make noises about maybe even becoming part of the European Union, cozying up to the United States, drifting away from Moscow's orbit. Vladimir Putin doesn't tolerate that kind of behavior from former Soviet republics. They may not be part of the empire anymore. They still need to kiss the ring and stay in line. And so for years now, the Russians have chewed away at Ukraine. They outright invaded and annexed the Crimean Peninsula. They sponsor a separatist movement in eastern Ukraine, which wages war against the Ukrainian government every day. And of course, the Russians have engaged in all sorts of other dirty tricks, intelligence operations, cyber attacks, etc. Again, all designed to just drive home that point to the Ukrainians that until such time as you get back in line and acknowledge that you will follow the lead of Moscow and forget about the Americans and the Europeans, that we will continue to inflict this pain upon you. Now, however, it's beginning to feel like we may be on the verge of something altogether qualitatively different. The Ukrainians have been saying for some time that the Russians are getting ready to launch a major conventional invasion of Ukraine. Now, the Ukrainians, as is clear from what I've just said, don't have any great love for the Russians. So the fact that they accuse them of something does not necessarily in and of itself mean it's true. But in this case, there's a great deal of evidence that suggests that it may well be. The Ukrainians say the Russians are amassing troops, tanks, other military assets on the border. In fact, satellite imagery confirms that and shows hundreds and hundreds of Russian tanks have been brought in. That's on top of the thousands of trucks, artillery pieces, armored personnel carriers that came with them. It also shows that the Russians are busy swapping out older model tanks amongst frontline units on the Ukrainian border and replacing those older tanks with newer model, modernized, much more combat-ready vehicles, suggesting strongly that somebody's thinking not in terms of saber rattling, but actually being in a shooting war sometime soon. There are also any number of other Russian units that have been brought in, air defense missiles, but amongst them, attack helicopter units, which in recent days have been observed practicing, going through war games, simulating, taking down enemy air defenses in the early stages of a land invasion. This would, of course, be one of the first things that the Russians would do if they were, in fact, to invade Ukraine. They would destroy Ukrainian air defenses so that they could operate with impunity. But here's maybe the single most disturbing thing, I think, of all. In this day and age, if you're going to launch an invasion, you have to have a pretext. You have to have a reason. You can't just stand up and say, because we felt like it. You have to claim that you're wearing a white hat and you're doing the right thing. In the last couple of days, the foreign minister of Russia, Mr. Lavrov, has started talking a great deal about the fact that the Russians don't want a war with Ukraine. The Russians don't plan to invade Ukraine. But the nefarious Ukrainians are preparing for some sort of hostile action that they intend to take at the end of December. Which sounds a whole lot like, in any language, we're going to blame this on the Ukrainians and we're getting ready to go to war. Everyone is focused on this. There are a lot of warnings in the international community. We will see whether Vladimir Putin is bluffing or whether in fact sometime very soon Russian tanks are going to be rolling toward Kiev. We will watch it closely. Thanks for watching. See you next time on Ground Truth.